speaker is Christine Vardaros. She's a world-class vegan cyclist and currently races for a Belgian-based Stevens cycling team. In today's presentation, Christine will tell you all about her sporting adventures on a vegan diet. She will share with you all that she has discovered, so you too can easily get the most out of your body. Please welcome Christine Vardaros.
Thank you very much. Anyway, like she said, my name is Christine Vardaros. I'm a professional cyclist, and I'm here today to talk to you not only about getting the most out of your body for active lives, but also I want to talk to you about the typical things that meat eaters say to me all the time, because I'm a very public person who's doing what she does on plants. And hopefully the information that I can share with you today, you can take back into your own lives. And when people come up to you and ask you, things about protein or Bs or B12, or how do you do it, how do you do activities on a plant-based diet, you could say, well, this is how I do it. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a pro cyclist for 13 years, and I'm also a vegan for 13 years, and a vegetarian for 23 years. I'm also a writer and a journalist. I write about everything from sports, health, fitness, nutrition, for a bunch of magazines and websites and newspapers around the world. And with my very little limited time, I'm also a spokesperson for a couple of animal rights organizations, such as In Defense of Animals, which is, they basically represent every kind of creature from like cats and dogs to gorillas and elephants. And I'm also a spokesperson for PCRM, which is Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And they do a lot of really nice campaigns, everything from stopping animal testing to healthy school lunches for kids. And as for my results on the bike, I've won many international events over the years since I've been pro. And I've also been named to the US national team to race at World Championships and World Cups many, many times. And I'm also currently one of the top 50 cyclists in the world. And I've been ranked even as high as 6th at one point. And that, I must add, is all on a vegan diet. And I also have to add that even now, at the age of 44, I'm still kicking the asses of girls half my age. And that is due to the vegan diet, I'm sure. But even with all my results over the years, I still encounter meat eaters, people trying to like kick me down and say, oh, but what about this, what about that? And a big one, since I am a public figure as an athlete, I always get, but doesn't your diet hold you back from being the best athlete you can be? And yeah, the answer is no, of course not. Genetics actually holds you back more than anything else. And then the rest comes down to things like, training, what kind of exercises you do, and diet and some other factors. And regarding the diet, what I can tell you for sure is that thanks to my diet, I'm by far, absolutely without a doubt, competing better than my genetics would have allowed. And I actually chose this diet, my plant-based diet, for its athletic advantages. When I became vegetarian 23 years ago, I did that just kind of on a whim. It was sitting with a girlfriend, and she said to me, we were at lunch eating our meatballs and spaghetti, and she said, hey, let's be vegetarian. We can feed the world 4 times over and maybe save the planet. I said, yeah, that sounds great. Who would say no to that? And then I said, what's a vegetarian? This is, 23 years ago in Manhattan. And I had no idea what a vegetarian was. So she explained it, and I said, okay. So we plucked our meatballs out of our spaghetti, and from that point forward, we were vegetarians. But the vegan part, it wasn't until I turned pro back in 2000 where I actually had to push my body to its limits, where I actually realized that something was amiss. Basically, my body was holding me back. And that's when I started looking into a plant-based diet. Because I figured, okay, if vegetarianism can already help me, maybe becoming a vegan, foregoing the milk and the eggs, can be like the ultimate diet. And so that's what I did. As soon as I found that information out, that those 2 things could possibly be holding me back, I gave them up. And within a few weeks, I was feeling so much better. And what I later learned over time, after a lot more research, was that milk is actually the athlete's worst enemy. Milk and all its products, cheese, yogurt, you name it, anything with milk. And I had no idea. And among the complications of consuming milk are actually breathing problems, fluid buildup in the lungs, coughing, dehydration, muscle inflammation, sickness, fatigue. Yeah, not to mention the obvious ones like osteoporosis, heart disease, cancer. But thanks to my newfound diet, I definitely just felt better overall. And my racing results shot sky high, which was a real plus because in theory, I knew it should. But in reality, when I was standing there at the races with my hands in the air, saying, oh my God, I just won the race and my hands are in the air, and I'm standing there with like trophies in my hand on the podium thinking, oh, this is so surreal. And of course, I'm thinking about all the plants that I ate and just thanking, being really thankful that I discovered it. Specific benefits of a vegan diet, which I learned over the years, is quicker recovery. The next morning after a hard training or a race, I wake up and I feel almost as fresh as the day before. This also means that I can get back-to-back training in, back-to-back racing in. For instance, stage races, like I did the Tour de France and some other stage races. That is something that comes easy for me because of my diet. As everybody else falls apart, I actually get better and better compared to the other girls. I'm also almost never sick. Again, that means more days to be productive, more days for me, for an athlete, to be able to train and race. And I also have more energy, or at least the same amount of energy as when I was 20. So, and injuries and bones heal much more quickly on a plant-based diet. And it was only after I actually settled into this plant-based diet that I realized the impact of my choices on the animals and the environment. And due to the impact on the animals, I am completely strict for all these years in both my diet and my lifestyle, because I would never feel good knowing that an animal suffered or a creature suffered because of me, because of my selfishness. So anyway, another big challenge that I get all the time, like I'm sure all of you get as well, especially because you're animal rights activists, is where do you get your protein? And especially as an athlete, they're pushing it even more with me. I get everything tenfold. And the simple answer is, I don't. I don't get protein. According to every single nutritional guideline for both athletes and non-athletes, I don't get enough protein. And but what I ask them in return actually is, yeah, when was the last time you've heard of a case of protein deficiency? And that dumbfounds them. They look at me and they go, what do you mean? I said, yeah, well, tell me, have you ever heard of anyone being protein deficient in a developed country, not in a third world country and starving? And yeah, the only other way that you could be protein deficient is if you sit there with your bag of sugar and just eat it by the spoonful, and that's all you eat. Then you could be protein deficient. According to the World Health Organization, the new recommended daily allowance of protein is 0.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. Even this is actually high according to the newer studies. Considering the average meat eater eats 3 to 4 times this amount, even a vegan will eat 2 times this amount. What this means is that the question is not how much protein, where do you get your protein from, but the actual question is how do you avoid getting too much protein? None of us know what protein deficiency looks like, but we all know what eating excess protein looks like. If you go to almost any hospital around the world, you'll see all those hospital beds are filled with people who ate too much protein their whole lives. It's just amazing. To give you an idea of some consequences of too much protein, it's diseases like cancer, diabetes, degenerative diseases, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disorders, allergies, including gluten allergies, asthma, obesity, kidney disease, osteoporosis, tooth loss, muscle tension, nervous system dysfunction, and eventual death, if something else doesn't kill you first. And for an athlete, too much protein means dehydration because a lot of water is used to flush out all the toxins that the protein breakdown process causes. Energy loss due to that protein breakdown process. Weight gain from extra protein being stored as fat, as well as weight gain from extra calories being pulled from your body because it takes so much longer for meat to digest in the body. With that said, I always try to keep my protein as low as possible, especially during heavy training or racing periods, or when I'm injured, of course. And this tactic has actually proved handy on many occasions. I remember a few years ago, I broke my leg, and I went to, I was in the East Coast, I flew all the way to the West Coast in America to see one specific guy in San Francisco. He's one of the best in the world on broken legs. And he's seen tons of professional athletes just like me. And he said, just want to let you know, 6 weeks minimum before it's healed. So I come back 3 weeks later with my coach, and he does the x-ray, pulls my coach aside, and he says, we've just witnessed a miracle. He said, I've never seen this. It's completely healed after 3 weeks. And my coach said, no, it's no miracle. It's called a plant-based diet with low protein. And from that point forward, he's been recommending to all his clients that they follow a plant-based diet, low protein, to heal as quick as possible. I also get the question regarding protein, but isn't protein the same? How is your body going to know if it comes from an animal source or if it comes from a vegetable source? And the answer, no, they're not the same. They're completely different. In simplified terms, an animal protein, when it comes into the body, it's a complete protein. You could just imagine, if you look at muscle fiber on your leg, that's muscle, that's complete protein. So anyway, when it comes into the body, it's kind of like this big conglomerate of amino acids, like all wrapped into each other. And that's what animal protein looks like. So when it comes into the body, your body first has to break it down because it can't use this big chunk. It has to break it down into its little parts of amino acids. And then once it's broken down into amino acids, then the body can use it. And that actually is the same, a lot of people don't know this, it's the same for nuts and seeds as well. That also has complete protein. So that's why you'll hear a lot of people saying keep the nuts and seeds low. It's for the same reason. But nuts and seeds, of course, don't also come with the negative attributes such as, cholesterol and, so much, saturated fats and antibiotics and pesticides and all the other things that animal protein would come with. But regarding the protein breakdown from animals, not only does it sap your energy, but when protein breaks down, it actually leads to the formation of many toxins, including ammonia. And that leads to an acidic body. And most people know that an acidic environment in your body is when all sorts of diseases and illnesses such as cancer can thrive. And all these acids need to be neutralized before they can leave your body. And for instance, ammonia, it's neutralized by a mineral as well, namely calcium. And the best source of calcium from the body is actually from the bones and the teeth. So it basically pulls calcium out of your bones in order to neutralize it so it can leave the body. This is why if you look around, the highest rates of osteoporosis are found in the countries with the highest rates of animal consumption, milk consumption. Yeah, it's kind of ironic considering they say drink milk for healthy bones. It's completely opposite. In addition, high protein foods from animal sources also take much more time to digest. It's 12 hours compared to 12 hours for a plant protein to digest. An animal protein takes 72 hours, where it just sits in your gut, creating toxins as it rots in your body. And this, of course, leads to many more health problems, such as leaky gut syndrome. And leaky gut syndrome can also cause allergies, fatigue, inflammation, autoimmune disease. And it also increases cortisol, otherwise known as the stress hormone. And when your cortisol is increased, that also increases your risk for osteoporosis, menstrual symptoms, toxicity, high blood pressure, depression, anorexia, schizophrenia, obesity, especially the fat around the belly, gastrointestinal problems, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain, dizziness, muscle pain, and the list goes on. So there is a big difference between plant protein and animal protein. And the other thing about protein that people always say is, but you have to combine your proteins. You have to do this rice and the beans, and actually, plant protein is complete protein. but it comes in the amino acids. So, so you can actually skip doing the protein combining. In fact, this no need for protein combining has also been confirmed by major organizations around the world, such as the American Dietetic Association. In fact, there have also been many experiments lately to prove that plant protein is adequate enough protein to build, build strong muscle, that it gives you all the essential amino acids, even when a single plant food like rice is the only source of protein. What we can do to stop this protein debate from continuing on and on and on is not only educate other people about the truth about protein, but also encourage them to stop apologizing for not eating enough protein, or when somebody says, how do you get your protein? You're vegan, how do you get your protein? And usually a lot of answers are, well, I eat, nuts and seeds and legumes and tofu and, wheat gluten, and we need to stop that. We need to stand up and say, we do get enough protein. Just from eating plants alone, we get enough protein. In fact, we're getting too much already. And then the other thing is we need to stop encouraging people to buy protein-specific products, like that are especially targeted at vegans, for their protein content. Because the more we buy them, the more we're saying to the industry, saying to everyone, yes, we are protein deficient. And if we stop buying them, then they'll start hearing us. And if we keep on buying them, then what happens is we're just going to get sicker and sicker, and that's not going to do us any good as a group. And as for the whey protein, that's kind of funny. Athletes are really the worst offenders with these protein shakes. The whey protein, the cheese industry is just laughing at all those athletes, because that used to be the byproduct, the part that was thrown away from the cheese-making process. And now they get to package it up into nice little containers and sell it to athletes for an exorbitant amount of money. And, a supplement that's going to slowly destroy your body. And, and if you don't want to spend your time explaining, protein to other people, you can always just say, yeah, well, the truth is you don't have to eat muscle to build muscle, just like you don't have to eat balls to grow balls, and you don't have to eat brains to be smart. It's the same concept. Lastly, people are always saying to me, but I crave meat. Yeah, actually, biologically, you're not actually craving meat. You have a nutritional deficiency, and that's something that those people need to address. It's not that they're craving actual meat. It doesn't mean that they're meat deficient, if that can make sense. As for the percentages in my diet of carbs and proteins, I'm actually getting about 70 to 75% carbohydrates and about 6 to 10 protein. I would eat less if I could, but it's harder than you think. And about 20% fats. And that's pretty much what most athletes are also eating. And that's also the ideal diet for somebody who is not an athlete, to eat about that kind of range. The next big topic that I always get as an athlete is the B12. It's always all about, but if you just eat plants, you're not going to get B12. Well, first of all, what B12 does is it basically affects every cell in your body. It assists the body in energy production. It's also a cofactor in other functions, such as manufacturing thyroid hormones and producing red blood cells. And while B12 may be actually found in meat, it's actually produced from the bacteria that the animal eats, from the B12 producing bacteria that the animal eats. And then when the animal eats it, then you eat the flesh, then you're basically eating that bacteria that makes the B12. So that's how it works. And the problem with it nowadays is that we live in such an unnaturally clean environment that not only are all the plants being depleted of this bacteria producing B12 producing bacteria, but also the flesh is being sanitized, sprayed, cleaned, washed, antibiotics, you name it, they clean the meat with it. So a lot of meat-eating people are now actually being diagnosed more than ever with a B12 deficiency. And the same problem is also with the vegetarians. Usually they would get it from the vegetables, that same B12 producing bacteria. But now the vegetables are also overly cleaned. Another problem is with these vast monocultures being grown, it's actually robbing the soil of cobalt. And cobalt is a very essential mineral for this B12 producing bacteria to thrive. Without cobalt, it doesn't grow. So with all these monocultures where they're growing, the same plant over and over again, year after year on the same field, it's again killing off the bacteria that we need. So you can see now, B12 is not only a problem for us, it's a problem for meat eaters, it's a problem for all of us. And what is nice to know is actually that B12, they say you have a few years before you can be completely depleted of B12. The reason why they say that is because there's actually bacteria from our mouth to our anus that makes the B12, that lives there. And our body actually recycles the B12. When it goes in, it recycles it, pulls it back into the body, and then over and over again. So it takes a while for us to actually be depleted. For me personally, I'm extra careful about my health because I rely on my body to do big things, do a lot of work. So actually, I probably get my B12 a lot from the garden. We have an organic garden in our backyard, like most people. So we probably get it that way. But I also take a B12 supplement just in case, because I do realize that the environment has changed. And I used to take a B12 supplement, the sublingual under the tongue. I used to take it about once every 2 weeks. And I always have to have my blood tested like 4 times a year for sports. And what I noticed actually is that my B12 is always high. So I actually pulled it down to like maybe 1 time a month that I take a B12 supplement, and my blood is still coming back fine. So that's what I do. That's what I do now. Another one, bees. Bees. People are always like, oh, but what about honey? Honey, the bees aren't even using it. Why can't we eat honey? And not true. Bees actually do use honey. They use it for the winter when there's no nectar to be collected from the flowers. And for a bee, it's a complete food, their honey. It has vitamins, minerals, fat, protein, carbs. It has everything that they need. Unfortunately, the common practice with beekeepers is that they'll collect all the honey, and what they'll do is they'll replace it with sugar water, which obviously isn't very healthy for the bees. And the problem that vegans have with that is that the sugar water that they're replacing it with is actually processed using bone char, more than not. So that's really unfortunate. And some of the beekeepers will actually argue, oh, but I only take the surplus. Yeah, the problem with that argument is that in the bee world, there is no surplus. If there's a surplus of honey, what they do is the hive splits. The colony basically splits in 2, and then every single bit of honey is used. The National Honey Board states bees travel as far as 90,000 kilometers to visit more than 2 million flowers to gather enough nectar to make 1 pound, 450 grams of honey. If you think about it, it's a lot of work for someone to just steal it. The other argument that people bring up is, yeah, but the bees aren't killed, and they're not enslaved. They can leave anytime they want. Again, not true. The natural course of bees is to periodically split up their colony if it becomes overcrowded or if there's too much honey, like I mentioned. Half the bees will go with the old queen bee, and half will stay with the newly selected new queen bee. During this preparation, no honey is made. So what does the beekeeper want to do? They want to stop this from happening to keep honey production at its highest. So what do? They'll actually kill the old queen, routinely kill the old queen, so that way the old queen doesn't take half the colony with her. And then they'll also, to stop the old queen, or to stop the queen bee at all from taking half the colony with her, they'll actually clip one of the wings of the bee. And if they actually do try moving, if it happens that half the colony says, okay, we're out of here, and they go to a nice looking hollow tree nearby, what happens is, they don't get to stay there. What they do is they go, they take the bees, they collect them all, a lot of times by, a suction, which is kind of like an overgrown vacuum. They vacuum them all up, take them back, put them into their man-made box. Also, when manipulating the bees, most beekeepers use a smoker to maintain control over the bees, and also obviously not to get stung. What happens is when there's smoke, the bees gorge themselves on the honey, so that way they remain calm. It also is said to mask the alarm pheromone that the guard bees will give off, so that way all the bees stay calm. And another way that beekeepers keep their bees calm is they'll do it by regularly killing their queen bees, replacing it with a younger queen. Even backyard beekeepers do this. And they do it basically to exert their control over the hive. And another tidbit that I found fascinating was queen bees actually come from commercial queen suppliers. These queens are mailed in a box in the post all over the world. Kind of like what they do to like day-old chicks. They just stick them in a mail. And so, of course, just like day-old chicks, not all of them will survive. And as for the rest of the colony, up to 20% has been typically lost over the winter every year, partly by accident, operator error, or obviously due to natural circumstances, and partly on purpose. Some beekeepers will actually kill off the whole entire colony just because it makes economical sense. And thanks to additional factors nowadays, such as like increased pesticides, the cold winters and springs, relentless mites, the percentage of bees that are dying over the winter is actually over 30% in some places around the world. And that's obviously what we're all reading about now in the papers. But to make up for the loss, what the beekeepers do is they actually order their bees by bulk. They buy them per kilogram, someplace, far on the other side of the world, to have them shipped over. And another thing I found pretty horrible is that during these winter months, while the bees are all dying off, usually the bees will like to take their dead and bring it out of the hive. And but what they do is they put mouse guards in front of the entrances, so mice can't get in. But now the bees can't take their dead out, so the bees basically have to live surrounded by their dead all winter. And people will say, but they're only bees, who the hell cares about a bee? And did you know that bees are actually considered an arthropod? It's the same phylum, kingdom in the category in the animal kingdom as crabs and lobsters. So by definition of veganism, they also would be protected creatures. And if bees are okay to exploit, then everything underneath it in the animal kingdom is also okay to exploit. That means, scallops, oysters, snails, they're also, free to torture and kill. And people are always saying, but bees don't feel anything. They feel a lot. They have a very large nervous system. They can transmit pain signals. Lastly, soybeans. People are always, trying to point the finger. They say, but, soybeans are really bad for the environment. And we're growing them because of you. And it's like, okay, not true. It is true that soybeans are really bad for the environment, especially because they grow them in those vast monocultures that's just, it causes massive environmental degradation, wasting huge quantities of water, and destroying wild lands, as we all know. But the truth is that over 80% is actually grown for livestock, for animals that they're going to consume. And only 6% is actually grown for human consumption. And if that wasn't bad, soy is actually one of the crops most commonly grown using genetic modification, which is a real serious concern, not only for your health, but for the environment. And pesticides are also regularly used to grow soy. This means that not only is it unhealthful to eat, but it's also doing harm to all those who live around these monocultures. The people living just around it are actually coming up with a lot of health problems, including respiratory conditions, allergies, cancer, and some of the animals are actually dying in the area. And it also doesn't help to grow soybeans, of course, only in a few places, because that means that wherever the soybean need is, they have to fly all that soybean across the world, and not good for the environment. Did you know that over half of the soybeans are actually processed for livestock are actually given to poultry, and another quarter is for pigs, and the rest is used for cows and pet food. But back to the diet, my funny diet with the plant foods. People are always saying, it is funny. It's funny and you have to eat all these complicated foods and, you know, I couldn't do that. You know, and I agree, half the foods that I hear are like funny foods that I don't even know of, you know, and I hear people talking about where they get this, that, and the other. And I also hear it from, actually to go back, I think that it actually came up many years ago when vegetarians started becoming popular. People were, even doctors, even nowadays doctors, are saying that if you're going to take off that big chunk of meat from your plate, it has to be replaced with something else. And so people started coming up with all these things of like what to replace it with. And that's where I think this idea of funny foods came to be. And it's even prevalent amongst athletes. I remember many years ago I talked at a World Vegetarian Day in San Francisco, and there were 3 athletes sitting here, and it was question and answer, and they said, okay, what do you eat for breakfast? So I said, yeah, I'll go first, I'll be easy. I stood up and I said, yeah, oatmeal, an apple, and a banana with water. And next guy got up, and just listening to him, he named like 20,000 ingredients, half of which I didn't even know what they were. It's like spirulina and some other kind of something bean, and it really overwhelmed me. I mean, if I have to wake up and have a tofu shake for morning and toast my own pumpkin seeds at 5 a.m. just to be a healthy vegan athlete, then, you know, it's like, I'll quit the sport and done. And luckily, I didn't have to quit. That what I ate was actually working just fine. To give you an idea of what I do eat, everything I eat can be found in a local supermarket. We also grow a lot in the garden. But the only time I do go to like a health food store is probably to buy nutritional yeast. It's those yellow flakes that taste kind of cheesy, because I really am addicted to pesto. And I'll take the nutritional flakes, add it with the basil from the backyard and the walnuts from the neighbor, and add some olive oil, lemon juice, salt, and pepper, and it's amazing tasting. But that's like my one guilty pleasure from a health food store. As for my exercise-specific meals, to give you an idea of what I would do like on a day where I'm going to work out, for breakfast, like I said, I'll have oatmeal, apple, banana. Sometimes if it's before a race, I'll throw in like some raisins and maybe some brown sugar. And other athletes are actually having bread with jam. A lot of them are also having oats and or pasta and rice with tomato sauce. I actually have a friend who does that. Yeah, I tried rice like that and it didn't work. During workouts, usually if it's a hard workout, I do just simple sugars. And that's anything from like, you know, an energy drink, iced tea even, watered down juice, energy gels, which is basically sugar water. And for easier workouts, I'll usually just like stuff a bunch of dried fruits in my pocket, like papaya, figs, mango. And if I have any energy bars, like granola bars lying around, you know, I'll eat that. Or I'll eat, actually, I have a sponsor called Boom out of Belgium, and I eat those a lot. And if the workout is very long, such as 4 hours or longer, then I'll eat those Boom energy bars, and I'll also have like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or a potato. I'll take a sweet potato, cut it into pieces, cook it in the oven, and then just like put it in a plastic bag and into my pocket, and it kind of keeps it going, because it's otherwise it gets really boring to eat the same old thing for 5-6 hours. And after a workout, my first priority is to have a recovery shake. And the easiest thing for traveling is just simple sugars that we get from the local baker. And then I add, this is the only time that I actually go out of my way to have protein, is just after a hard workout or a race. I'll do a pinch of protein, not much at all. And what that does is that actually helps right after exercise, it actually helps for your body to use the carbohydrates that you give it. Just that little bit of protein. They say all you need is like 4% even. So anyway, that's the only time that I really go out of my way for protein. And then that's within 30 minutes. And then within an hour or so after a workout, then I usually have a big, huge high carbohydrate meal like pasta or rice or something else, whatever's around. And as an athlete, I'm also always searching, like every other athlete, for that magic food or that magic pill. And over the years, I came up with quite a few that, talking to other pro athletes and stuff, we all kind of share secrets. And these are some of the, well, not such secrets, but these are some of the things that we all use. Beet juice. It actually boosts endurance, according to studies, by 16%. It's also said to quickly lower blood pressure and prevent blockages that lead to strokes and heart attacks. Not that I would be worrying about a stroke or heart attack, but it also has other benefits. And studies show that if you drink 1 cup of beet juice, it actually lowers your blood pressure by 10 points, and you'll have the benefit for a full day. I actually drink about 500 milliliters 3 to 6 hours before a hard event. And you have the best effect if you do it day after day, like for 5 days before an event. Apples, they're known to increase endurance. They also pep you up. They give you a lot of energy, and some people will also use it for diet to lose weight because we're always worried about being too fat because it has high fiber and low calories, so it works well. Bananas, great for pocket foods, so we're all addicted to them. Simple, high energy, easy to digest. It also helps me to sleep. I take a banana before I go to bed at night. It also has potassium, which helps for muscles and cramps. They're also good post-workout food because it does have that little bit of protein in them. So, green tea, that's a big one. I actually, a few months ago, replaced my coffee with green tea, and for its health benefits. Coffee also has health benefits, but I found that from everything, my own experience and from my research, that green tea is that bit better. I drink it for its antioxidant effects, and I also drink it because it burns calories. They say that if you take three green tea extract pills per day, you actually burn 225 calories, according to the studies. So, of course, I take it. One way to prepare it is if you take 4 bags, put it in a liter of cold water, and you just let it sit in the fridge overnight. And then the next day you can just, drink it all day long for a little bit of extra energy and for its antioxidant effect. Cayenne pepper, that's also something that I take every single day. I put it on all my foods. They also sell it in pill form, but I like the taste of spicy foods. And it improves circulation. It rebuilds blood cells, kills cancer cells, lowers cholesterol, just like oats. It also removes toxins from the bloodstream and basically improves overall heart health. What I use it for as an athlete, because I have to race in the winter as well, is I use it to help for the circulation for my hands and feet. And since I've been taking it on my food, I don't suffer in the winter from cold hands and feet, not nearly as much as I used to. And I live in Belgium now, and I came from California, so you can imagine when I moved to Belgium, it was a pretty big shock, and so I really, really rely on this cayenne pepper. Next is turmeric. That's a yellow spice that's it's loaded with potent anti-inflammatory compounds called curcumin. And this actually helps to reduce muscle inflammation after workouts. It's also said to increase endurance and speed recovery. And oats, of course, that's my all-time top favorite. Almost every single day I have my bowl of oats without fail. I even travel with it to countries if they don't have oats. Yeah, it of course, lowers cholesterol. Interesting story. Thanks. Actually, we'll skip the interesting story because I have 5 minutes to go. Parsley. I actually chop that all over and put it all over my food, and that's for the iron effect, because it's really good with iron. And if you take that with citrus fruits, it actually helps to uptake the iron. And a mini detox that I use citrus fruits for as well is about once a month or so. I'll do it for like maybe 7 days. I'll take the juice of 1 lemon with a pinch of cayenne pepper, fill the rest of the cup up with water, and I'll drink that first thing in the morning, as soon as I wake up. And I do it maybe 7 days. And I can tell you, by the second day or something, I always get my 3 or 4 pimples. As you can see, I'm having it now. And then by the 7th day, it's amazing. I actually feel the difference. Cherries and other berries, I really love eating berries because it helps for after workouts for the anti-inflammatory effect. And peanuts. It has the word nut in it, but it's actually a legume. So I eat a lot of it, a lot of peanuts with my peanut butter and jelly. I'm an American, so. Pills that are common for us. Vitamin C, I take 2 grams per day, and that's just for basic maintenance. And I also take 2 grams 2 hours before a hard workout to ward off asthma and allergies where you'd have breathing problems from. L-tyrosine, it's the compound that helps for brain chemicals. Most people won't be deficient in it, but it can help you if you're slightly depressed or if you have psychological stress. So I take L-tyrosine sometimes. Another one is vitamin D. A lot of us are taking vitamin D because it's crucial for bone and muscle function. Especially in the winter, I make sure that I take vitamin D. And that's also because the body really runs out of it quickly. And if you're doing a lot of stuff with your bodies, you really need to make sure that you have enough for this bone and muscle function. And again, green tea extract pills. A lot of athletes are now switching to that and taking it regularly without fail all year long because we're always worried about our weight. And it's also just great because when you exercise, you actually produce a lot of free radicals, which can actually make you sick and lead to a lot of other unwanted side effects. So we're always worried about the free radical scavengers. And green tea extract called EGCG pills, that's the extract from the green tea, helps a lot. I just want to lastly do a shout out to a couple of vegan athletes. One is Serena Williams, just won the US Open a few days ago. That was just awesome to hear. And Patrick Baboumian, I'm sure I'm destroying his last name. He's a strongman guy, just broke the world record carrying 550 kilograms, 10 meters. And just as he broke the world record, he yelled, "Vegan power." And I just thought that's the coolest thing in the world. And afterwards he said, yeah, it's a bit stupid to do things like that. It really hurts, but the point is to inspire people and to break stereotypes that tough guys or girls need to eat a lot of meat. I just want to thank you all for coming here and listening to me, and I also want to thank you all for doing the work that you do for the animals. I so appreciate it. Thanks.